Hello. Um, I'm back. We're working on the same map. So today the idea is I'm gonna start working on these beachheads and getting them kind of like this is now. I'll kind of walk you through how I got it to this point. It's kind of hard though, 'cause I have the foundation kind of just at water level, so seeing the difference is basically like kind of on like gradient right there, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's start, shall we? Um, kind of get a bit higher. I personally find it a bit easier to start up high, at least for this part of the map modeling. Go over to landscape mode. So what I have been using is I believe it's the smoothing tool. No, it's the flatten. Here we go. So the idea with this is you don't want to do this. That's not what you want to do. You want to kind of get it to kind of flow with the grain of these bigger islands, right? So if you look at my cursor right now, you'll see that there's two circles. The inner circle is the kind of like the full array of the brush, and then the outside circle, the area in between the two circles, that's the brush fall off. So it has like a reduced effect as you go through. That's not supposed to be like that. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, yeah. Let's find a location that needs doing. Pretty sure I did this one. See, what I'm trying to get rid of and prevent is basically like big chasm-like cliffs leading from the water to the land. So, okay, yeah, here we go. So if you look closely, it's a bit easier to see here. Like, you can see that it stops. There's no gradient to the water to the land, right? So you'd basically be jumping straight out of the water with your player. But this is actually pretty tall compared to the player in question. To kind of put it into perspective, I have a dummy I can kind of drag over here. Let me pull this loser over here and show you. All right. Yeah, so I mean, looking at that, the player's like probably, you see these like little lines right here. That's how you kind of tell the height of your map, right? At least that's what I'm using as a landmark, right? Um, so you can kind of see that he basically is as tall as one of these little blocks of the indention and the world builder. So what I want to do is basically get this beachhead to be smooth so that you can run from the water to the land without having to get like a boat or ladders and stuff like that to build up right here. So with that being said, let me go back into landscape mode to kind of build it a little bit, kind of find a good starting point. See if I've done anything to this. No, I did a little bit, not much. Okay, well, that's good. That gives me a chance to kind of show y'all what I'm about to do. Ah, shite. Forgot about that. Let me Control Z. So whenever you mess up like this and you need to go back, as long as it's within one click, like a left mouse click, you can press Control Z with the dev kit and have it revert back to what it was beforehand. And from there, you can just kind of, play with it on this side and get it to conform to the right size. So yeah, the big obstacle with this is kind of getting it to not do that bit, because it's really easy with the tool strength to have it be all or nothing. It's really hard to get it kind of fine lined right where you need it, So doing this way is, it's the only way I've really found to do it. If you have any suggestions on how to do it, I'm all ears. Promise you. I'll do 0.5 and see if that's any better. Let's take a look at the... Yeah. That kind of did it, but you can still see the little, bit, right? Let me use the smooth tool instead. I think that's what I'm doing wrong. Let me revert this back and see if this works any better. With the dev kit also, you have to kind of let it sit until it's ready, right? If you try and do too many actions at one time, you're liable to just outright crash the system. Still doing this. Kind of wish I could increase this. Come on. Load. There we go. Okay. Smooth. Yeah, this is what I was using. Sorry about that. I misrepresented what I was doing. See, but then it does that type of thing too. It's so weird. It might just be artifacts kind of thing, but it's not supposed to do that. I don't understand why. Maybe. Yeah, that's why. Okay. I was just on the wrong thing. That's fine. Need to go back and do this the right way. Sorry, there's a lot of trial and error with this, and just getting it right, it takes time, and luckily, yeah, it's fun. It's fun enough, at least. I will be back when I get this brush sorted out, and then I'll kind of show you how it works. Alrighty, so I am back, and I did manage to get it to start working again. To kind of demonstrate, I'm gonna go to a separate part of this island and show you what I managed to get it to do, and the kind of the idea and a little bit of a tips to tricks kind of thing. So with this, I would recommend kind of doing a large area first. So you use the brush fall off instead of the main. So you basically want to have the center circle be on top of the land entirely. And then you want to have the outside circle kind of overlapping the beachhead. So when you press the left, the left mouse button, and you kind of drag it back and forth, it'll start kind of conforming this beach to fits more softly in with the world. So if I go down here now, it's smooth. You know, you can more or less walk up and down that beachhead. So yeah, and I to kind of demonstrate this part of it, what I would do whenever you do it is kind of, when you go back and forth, look at the water line. So there is a reflection, so you kind of see two looks to it. When that second look kind of goes away, that's when it's really smooth to the gradient of the beach. And then what you're going to do from there is basically watch the water line as it recedes into the land. Now it may sound a bit weird, and I hope you kind of bear with me, but yeah, that's how I would recommend kind of taking the abstract approach, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, so kind of just doing that. With these smaller ones, these guys right here, I would definitely recommend doing a smaller brush. Because if you do too much, you know, it turns into, well, basically just a big old mound. And that's not really what you want. You know, you want a little bit of nuance to it. So, going back, I can show you what I would do. So, I'm going to wait for this to do its thing and go back to the previous iteration. There we go. And we're going to go over here to the brush fall off. We're going to turn that down about halfway, I would say. And then this brush size. So you only really want it kind of, well, small, really. So you want some beach heads, you want some higher ones, you know. The back of it, kind of want it to have a more rock-like approach, right? And if you wanted to, you could do this. So you pull that up. I would turn the fall off down all the way. You don't want this very high. You want to get this like the very edge of this little island. I think the better way to do this part would be to kind of go up. Now it's kind of hard to see. Sorry, wrong button. Kind of hard to see what you're doing in this section, right? But if you take into account the reflections of the sun, the shadows, you can kind of tell basically the level of the level of the surrounding water and stuff. So if I do this around the ring, right, it would make kind of like a mound or a hill kind of thing. So now doing this exactly can be kind of tedious because you're just basically tracing. It's like doing Microsoft Paint to a degree. And I am not the best with Microsoft Paint. So, and kind of giving it some distinction, you kind of go over here and turn the tool strength up a little bit, right? So you want some hills that are bigger, some that are smaller. Say, if you want to go down a little bit with another part of it to kind of give it like a divot kind of feel to it, you would press the control, I believe. No, that's raising, sorry. It's shift? Yeah, it's shift, okay. So, looking at this now, you know, you have a somewhat unique little blob in the ocean that you can use for an island. And if you want to kind of do something else for it to make it more unique, I would use what's called noise. It basically adds variation to the well, the land and this landscape. So kind of giving it. It's not doing it. Hold on. Turn this up. It basically like essentially it modulates the land so it's not so cut and dry. So like, if you look at this right here, right? That's what it's doing. It's adding like little smaller divots that are smooth to the actual feel of the map, you know, the landmass. If you do this, it'll kind of get it all to smooth out. Now, one other one that I really enjoy to use is called erosion. So these outside edges, erosion's really good with dealing with those because it basically just softens those pesky, like hard, basically like the little cliffs. It's the steeper way of doing it. So if you're trying to do a not a beachhead, but a steep incline where it doesn't have the little fall off edges like it did over here. So like right here, where it has the little lines and the little checking kind of things to give the different pieces, right? Because if you use that over here, right, you basically have it do that. It basically just smooths out that edge while keeping the same height and general width, right? Whereas if you do the smooth, it'll, basically cut into the island a little bit and allow you to smooth it out. See? So just letting you see that. Coming back over here, you do the weather and you have it kind of smooth that out, or sorry, the erosion. Sorry. Hydro is another form of kind of like a natural iteration kind of engine thing or brush, and what it basically does is, well, it's a modulator brush essentially. It kind of smoothens stuff out, gives like a natural weather pattern feel or like erosion kind of thing to it. So if I were to do it right here, it would kind of go this way. It would smooth out this because the water would flow down and kind of empty off into the sea. So it would grab whatever was right here and break it down and have it be basically like fuel, or not fuel, it basically smoothens stuff out in a way. Sorry, I don't really know the terminology with this type of stuff. I'm more or less getting into it myself, so don't hate me too badly. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's how I would use those brushes. So I will come back real quick and show you the progress with the main island. So one thing I forgot to mention that I probably should have led with, if you don't like the general layout of your islands and your map, right, you're going to want to kind of add on to it and like draw in more stuff, like more land, as you like before you start doing the beaches and stuff like that. Because with what I'm doing right now, I'm going to have to go through and basically add more and get these circles out the way so it's not so repetitive and cookie cutted, I'm gonna have to go through and work on that once I get the smoothing done. So that being said, just whenever you start trying to make a map, you're gonna want to well, think about that before you start doing it. Think about the steps beforehand that you might not be able to do as effectively or efficiently later because of the choices or the actions that you've taken in previous. Also, one thing I should mention is when you're doing anything in the dev kit, really, it has a massive frame drop whenever you try doing too much at one time. So if if you have like a massive brush size, so I believe it caps out at 65,000. But I'm gonna do this and make sure. Yeah, so it caps out at 65,000. If you try and do too much at one time, it'll like buffer and you won't get a complete picture of what you're doing as you're doing it. So, I mean, I'm not telling you how to do this, but I would definitely recommend taking this part of it a bit slower so you're getting the right gradient on the beachheads that you're really wanting. Because with what it's doing right now, you know, you kind of lose out on a lot of the detail that you would ordinarily catch if you were using a smaller size brush. So like, it's a great time saver though. I will say that it is great at saving you some time. But if you want to be more precise, I would definitely recommend lowering the brush size and taking your time. Because if you do it like this, you know, it just like it did just then, it pauses and you don't see what you're doing until it's already really done, you know? So, yeah, you just do you. So, now that I have gotten the beachheads done, right? Like I said, I'm going to have to go back and add in some land so it's not so cut like that. Or I could subtract from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up high and I am going to get the flattened target. You're going to want to make sure that this is on if you're raising up more land to the size that this is already at. You're going to grab this eyedropper. So what this does is it basically selects a elevation that you're going to be raising or lowering anything that's within it's not within that elevation too. So this is the black grid. That's my elevation that I have it set going to. So that if you look, it's not the highest that it can be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to, it's generally better to go into the middle of the island and select there. That way you are at the highest you can possibly be. And since this is a lower degree of kind of going through, we're going to turn the, you know, we're going to keep the brush size probably like halfway of what it was right then. So if you press into the brush size, it'll highlight and you can just type it in. So I'm going to do 30K and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's fine. So I do that. And then you're going to want to do raise. You don't want to drop it or anything like that. So like if you had mountains and stuff like that, other elevations within this, and you didn't want to modify those and only raise the land to meet where you have it selected, or the elevation that you have selected, you're going to want to change the flatten mode to raise only. If you do both, it'll both it'll both flatten and then raise. If you just do raise, that's, well, exactly what it sounds like. It'll just raise the land. If you do lower, it'll basically negate anything above that elevation down to what you have it set as. So now that we have that looking at, you know, we're going to go through and add in some extra. No, that's not it. Forgot to turn off the brush fall off. So the brush size was a lot bigger than I was anticipating because it's kind of hard to see. There was that bigger ring, and I have the tool strength turned up quite a bit. So the outer ring is a bit harder to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the brush fall off. So the entire circle is shaded in, and the shaded in part is what you're going to be directly impacting. There's no fall off, there's no gradient, it's directly what it sets, okay? So what we're going to do from here is I'm going to keep the tool strength high, because with this it's more about not speed but efficiency with this one, because you're going to want to kind of lead into the island and kind of move your cursor to build the land. So like, let's put it like this, like you have it going like this. And it's okay if you need to move your camera to accommodate the look. So it's basically just Amazon Paint, you know, trying to add in and subtract from the build that you've already made, getting rid of stuff that you don't want in the graphics or the world itself and how it's built. So like, personally, I don't like these circular edges. I would rather they not be there. So that's what my goal is right now to fix. So if I'm gonna do kind of like circular edges, I'm gonna go through and just basically do this. Now, instances like this, where it's like the very edge of something, it's really hard to get it to do its thing without kind of adding too much onto the side. So what you're going to do, or what you would do, is just lower the brush size. So yeah, I kind of forgoed that step, so I didn't do it, but that's typically how you would kind of fix that little blunder, I guess. So gonna wanna do yeah, there we go. So, and like I said before, ideally you would have this part of it done before you would actually start edging out the beaches and stuff like that, the different gradients. Sorry, I thought I was hearing something. You would have that set up already. So yeah, so that looks a bit more natural, you know. To kind of give it some more of a give you more of a look. I can do this. That's also another thing about doing it too much at one time. It skips over parts, and you kind of have to double back, and you have a higher propensity of messing the trace up if you kind of double back like that. So that's more natural, you see. Whereas this has a bunch of outcropping and stuff you just generally don't want. To a degree, I like the outer bits of the circles, but there's too much of it, so I'm essentially wanting to cut some of it out so it's not so blatant and obvious. Sometimes it's easier to drag like that. Sometimes it's easier to just tap the left button or the left mouse button, and it'll fill in that specific spot. Now, if you don't have your tool strength turned up all the way, it won't work immediately. So, just forewarning. There we go. Okay. So before I start the next stream or recording, I'm gonna do some work off camera to get some of these beaches redone so you don't have to witness the same thing over and over again. Although if that is something you want to see, I can record it. I just probably won't unless you want to see it. I don't know how to change the shape of the brush. It'd be great if there was like a square brush that you could use. That would be fantastic. But as I said, I'm not very certain on how you would do that or even if it is possible in the Ark Devkit. But supposing that it is, I would love if somebody would tell me how to do it. So, see it just jumping around like that. That sucks. Also, if you're like really, really close to the land too, I've personally noticed that it kind of bogs down whenever you do so much. So like if I were to go probably about this close, yeah, it stutters a little bit more. Whereas if I'm out here, it'll still stutter, but not nearly as much. That's another thing I need to go through and do is kind of fix some of the holes in the map. So like over here. So that's a great way to fill holes that you've missed the first go round is kind of going through this and modifying. Okay, cool. There you go. So hopefully that helped you kind of get your feet wet and learn a little bit as far as the landscape and stuff like that. With that being said, like and subscribe if you feel like doing so. I would greatly appreciate it if you would kind of push this channel into the limelight so that, or out of the limelight, so that people that are looking to do this type of thing can either help or get helped doing it. With that being said, I will talk to y'all next time. Bye.